Hello, Divine Light listeners, and welcome to season 2 of Own Your Divine Light show. I'm Janet Miller, and I am so thrilled and excited to welcome a revolutionary thought person here. This is Val Silidker, and she is a co-founder and director of Psychospiritual Institute and founder of Inspired Life Workshops. She is a paradigm leader and absolutely, wait till you hear. She is a deep ecologist, an international speaker, an author, a board certified master coach, and a coach trainer. Val works with change makers, emerging leaders, visionaries to inspire the highest level of mindset, connection, and purpose in their lives. She has been featured on the Hay House Radio, NBC, and USA Today, and she has had the honor of presenting alongside such visionaries as Don Miguel Ruiz, Vandana Shiva, Dr. Gabrielle Cousins, Andrew Harvey, Parker J. Palmer, Diva Pramal and Mitan, and many others. Through her large-scale mindful living events, conferences, workshops, retreats, and coaching, Val has inspired the transformation of thousands of people throughout the world. She is passionate about rewilding our hearts and believes that through love and authentic connection, we are inspired into action toward a more compassionate and whole world. And that is such a powerful statement. Thank you so much for being here, Val. It is such an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Janet. I'm really happy to be always in the conversation.
Thank you. And honestly, your conversations are incredible. So I heard a little bit about your beginnings, but if you don't mind telling us a little how you got inspired to step into all that you do.
Ooh, we'll start with an easy question.
Okay, easy. Where did it start?
Oh my goodness. Looking back, and I think probably most of us can resonate with this, I could see the seeds in me all the way through my life, from a child, adolescent, growing up. But I think that there was a real moment of awakening that happened for me. And that was in my very early 20s. And truth be told, it was like this really big heartbreak that happened for me when I discovered and learned about how we treat other animals on this planet. Right. So I had a partner at the time, my boyfriend at the time, who was introducing me to things like slaughterhouse videos and like those horrible things that you never want to look at. Yeah. And what's going on in the circuses behind the scenes, and all the things that we're doing to other animals on this planet that I had never really thought about. I grew up going to circuses and eating whatever and just like not really thinking about where does my food come from, what's going on with these animals that are in these situations. And so it really opened my eyes. And my first gut reaction, like just that initial reaction, I wouldn't say gut actually, because that's more instinctual, but my first reaction was to be defensive about it. Oh, well, this is this and this is that. And then I realized like the words coming out of my mouth were not feeling true for me. And I took a deeper look and I was like, wow, like how are we doing this? Like, how are we doing this and feeling okay about it? And it really got me, it broke my heart open, in the deepest place of compassion, where I started to ask myself, what else don't I think about? What else don't I know that's happening in the world? Or what else do I assume to be absolutely true? And I started really reconsidering my relationship to everything. And so through that, I started getting involved actually in animal welfare, animal rights. I started an organization. This is, again, early 20s. And long story short, it began to evolve, and unfold throughout my life, where it became more about like the larger environment and how are we treating the planet and who are we and what does it mean to be human in this world. And so it got me into a space of deep inquiry, and it set me on this journey. And I started getting very deeply involved in speaking. We made a documentary film about the marine park industry, and it launched my speaking career like over 20 years ago. And then that began to unfold more and more into like environmental issues and social issues, and what is our relationship to each other, and all of that eventually led me to the understanding that the way that we create change in the world, and this is after many years of direct action and activism and doing all this work, is to look within at who we think we are and how we relate to ourselves and each other and the planet. And so my work became really deeply inward, uh,
Mm-hmm.
through eco-psychology and spiritual psychology, and asking those deeper questions about who we are. And from that space, we start to create change within ourselves that allows us to step forward in a different way into our world. So that's, long story short, but it all came from that space, really, of just, you know, mind blown, heart blown open, and having to look at who I am and how I really want to live my life.
Yeah, and just seeing how we treat animals is really how you treat animals is kind of like how we treat ourselves, don't we? I mean,
Yes.
if you can treat, it's really a reflection. So everything we're doing and every way we treat people and beings, anything living on the planet, even insects, like I don't want to kill them anymore. Like I haven't, the only one I'll go after lately is a mosquito because they've got that thing going on around here. It's not a good thing at the moment, but other than that, my husband will go, "Oh, you got to kill." I said, "No way. I'm not touching him. Leave him alone. He belongs to just as much as you do."
Yeah.
And he just looks at me.
We do the best we can, right? It's really
Right, right.
about how can we live our in the most compassionate way possible,
Hmm.
right? So it may mean like me versus the mosquito at some points, but how do we live the best life that we can that honors life, that honors.
Exactly. And I think we got so lost with that. I mean, we're starting to like do the turn back. I know in the 60s, the hippie movement was kind of like we were starting to get back to the earth and love everyone and all that. And I was, young at that and I loved all that. And it was so real to me. And now I think it's evolving into something new. Like you're saying, we have to go in. Everyone's going in now. And it's so important to connect with our inner self, which is all about, loving yourself. And you talk about the self-love, how much that, you have worked with you're in the Psycho Spiritual Institute and you're doing this amazing work there that's teaching people how to connect in all the different ways. It's not the old way of doing psychoanalysis. Everything is changing. You've revolutionized that with the things that you do there. So, you know, how would you talk about what you do with the Psychoanalysis Institute?
It was psychospiritual.
Psycho-spiritual. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so that's interesting. So in Psychospiritual Institute, we're an organization that not only invites us to dive into the question, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Remembering who we are on the deepest level possible. And, we can talk about that some more too. It's also sculpted as a leadership program. Very much,
Ah.
right now our world is suffering on so many levels. We're suffering personally, we're suffering collectively. There's a lot of systems are collapsing. There's a whole dominant paradigm out there that's trying to keep things business as usual, which is just hurting the planet and hurting ourselves. And we're sick. The world is toxic, and we feel it inside of us because everything is profoundly interconnected. And so what we do at the Institute is to bring people through, and right now we have a 9-month program that's a board certified leadership program and coach training. And so we're doing this personal work, the spiritual psychology called psychosynthesis. And it's this deep work that allows us to look at who we are on a personal level, meaning like who I am as Val, who you are as Janet, and how our lives have shaped us and what gets in our way from really living the life we know we're meant to live.
Mm.
And we look at who we are on the most profound level, the highest self, that part of us that's interconnected, that is the intelligence of the universe, and how we create an alignment with that deepest part of us and our deepest sense of purpose, and how we live our lives, because we're not always living aligned. And so we do this work, people do the work on themselves. It's like personal development, 2.0.
Mm.
And then it's sculpting us towards being not only leaders of our own lives in that way, but then being able to step forward as leaders in the world. Because right now, we have, like I said, this dominant paradigm that's heading us toward this, all the visions that we envision of this post-apocalyptic world and all these systems collapsing and people in chaos. We are looking like we're heading towards this way in some ways. And then we have a whole group of people that are just awakening on a really deep level to what may be possible if we dream a new dream and we imagine a new future, and we're living towards that. And that starts with us. It starts with living aligned with who we are and stepping into our gifts and owning our divine light, right?
Mm.
so we can shine that into the world and shine that into a new vision of who we may be. So that's the work we do at Psycho Spiritual Institute. It's the work I've been doing for a very long time, even before that, you know. And so it's really culminated into this beautiful vision of the institute right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw you do something special in like the early, like February. You do like was it 20 or 40-day event? You do
Well,
something.
yeah, that's something else. So for the last close to 20 years, I've also been doing creating large scale mindful living events, all
Mm-hmm.
kinds of events, festivals and conferences and online summits like yours, and all kinds of wonderful things. And so in January, I have an event called Feast for the Soul.
Mm-hmm.
And I bring together 40 different teachers, and it's a beautiful, it's online mostly. We have an in-person event in the beginning that launches. It's an opening candlelight ceremony,
Yes, I saw
and then
that.
a closing party. And then for 40 days, every morning in your email inbox, you receive a different teacher offering a mindfulness practice, meditation, breath work, yoga, music and mantra, all kinds of beautiful ways of connecting with ourselves. So those are some other things that we do through the Institute. We do.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing for people to know, I think, because when I saw that, I said, oh, I'm going to check that one out, because there's someone else I know who did something called Conscious Creators, and for 30 days they came on and someone was offering something spiritual teaching, and you're doing that too. Like, this is your way, but it's you've involved all kinds of different things with the yoga and the different, meditations. It's powerful, because we need those things. I mean, we need a little structure. People need structure to get the practice going on. When you do 40 days, it almost can get you into a nice momentum of, connecting with yourself. And
it creates a new habit, a new way of
exactly
being,
creates that new
right?
habit. Yeah.
Mindfulness is the big buzzword right now, but it
Mhm.
really is so important for us to be really mindful of what's happening in us at every moment. What are the emotions that are present, and how do we reconnect with that deeper part of us that's beyond, that's bigger than, that's more than our emotions and our experiences in this life, and be able to view whatever flows through us and hold whatever flows through us. And so being mindful and creating a mindfulness practice is a really wonderful way to become more aware of what it is that we're holding inside of us. I think that our world, very much we're like escape artists in this world, and we're taught to turn away, we're taught to not feel, we're taught to escape in every way possible. And so you see it, we're like all on our devices, and we're
Mhm.
watching media, and we're addiction is at the all-time high, and like all kinds of ways to escape, because there's just, like I said, so much pain and suffering. We're not only holding our own suffering, we're holding the pain of the world within us. And whether or not we're aware of it, we are all feeling it, because
Mhm.
our larger body. Literally, this is what we are. The air we breathe, and the food we eat, and the water we drink, and the information we take in becomes part of us.
Mhm.
So how we treat the world is how we treat ourselves. So it's really important that we take time to honor everything that's present for us.
Yeah, and that's so true, because people forget, like, when you do toxic things in another part of the world, it's going to come back to us anyway. The world, we're all one here, and it's all circulating, and it's all affecting us eventually.
Yes.
My sister-in-law lives over in Eugene, Oregon, and when they had the Japan, disaster with the nuclear plant,
Yes.
the waste went right over to a beach in Oregon. It
Yes.
came over within like 2 or 3.
One ocean. We have one ocean. We call it
Right.
different parts of the world, but it's one ocean, and the earth
True.
is primarily water. Yes.
And people don't even think of it that way. Oh, it's so far away, it doesn't touch us. I was on that beach, and I see the signs. It was saying toxic waste, do not touch anything. Do not bring anything out of here. Do not approach I was like, oh my God, this is shocking. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I
So
had
what? So it's like, well, how do we hold all of this,
Right.
right? And so I think resilience, becoming very resilient, and meaning being able to take in all that's happening and come back stronger, more aware, more awakened. I love to say that evolution happens under the greatest amount of pressure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And right now, literally, we are all feeling this pressure. It's like we're like the kettle is whistling, and here we are, we're feeling this. And it's either we change the way we are doing things,
Mm-hmm.
or or things are just really going to fall apart and collapse. And they may do that anyway, but then how do we bounce back stronger from it? How do we learn? It's like whenever we have our personal experiences of those most challenging moments in our life, you know, the dark night of the soul, you know, those are not things to be taken lightly, because those moments in our lives are the ones where we discover incredible information about who we are on our personal self, in our personal lives, in our personal selves. And it's the same thing in the world. You know, when the world is experiencing the dark night, which is what we are heading into deeper and deeper, we're also able to have access to incredible information, right? That can move us in a new direction. We're learning about who we are. We're learning about this sort of, it's almost like a mutation is starting to happen in the human species on an inner level, and a more consciousness, on a consciousness level. And so because of all this pressure that's happening, our consciousness is expanding, and our ability to understand who we are, you know, this mystery of science and spirit coming together, the sense of non-duality, you know, really getting that we are the intelligence of the universe. We are the mystery that gave birth to the universe. That is what we are. You know, 13.7 billion years of evolution, and it's awakening inside of us, like the universe becoming aware of itself through us. And as we more and more through science begin to understand who it is that we are, what we are, it empowers us to make conscious choices about how to move our world forward. So we're feeling that pressure, and then the evolutionary movement is awakening our consciousness to move us forward in a new way. If you follow me, you know, being invited into a new way of being human in this world. You know, how do we take our world forward? How do we become leaders? You know, this is the question that sits in my heart all the time.
Yeah, because leadership is at an all-time low, I'd say, in the world. I mean, there isn't, I remember growing up, you look at people and look at them as a leader and kind of, you know, admire them or something. Not that we have to do that anymore, but still there's no, like, you know, even for your country, you look at the leadership and you're thinking, wow, I don't know about that, to put it nicely.
You kind of hit the nail in some ways. It's like, you know, we have people in leadership positions that are not operating as leaders.
Right. I mean,
it's different.
And that's a hard thing to watch. That's the hardest thing to watch. Even if the job is maybe doing something good somewhere, I don't know where yet, but you know, I know the economy is supposedly, well, right now we're in a recession, so I don't know. They're saying we're in a recession, and people aren't even knowing that yet, but we're there. And, you know, so I don't know. It's one of those conundrums. And if we start talking about this, it's going to get people like, woo, you know, so.
What we can talk about is the fact that there's a disconnect.
There's a disconnect
between ourselves and the natural world. And this is huge. This is the center point of everything.
This is true. Yeah.
We believe that humans and the rest of the whole planet, that humans are somehow separate, then the way that we treat the planet doesn't matter, because it's not part of us. What we're really getting is that everything we do to the world directly affects us. You know, there's no separation. So when we treat the country, or you know, a country in general, as a business, that means money first, right? And that means money at the cost of life, at the cost of preserving the environment, at the cost of ethics, at the cost of anything. It means that the bottom line is the dollar. And that is where we're in it. That's what's dangerous about the world right now, is that when we see the world as a business, we are not taking care of things from a heart-centered space, you know, and it's sometimes very opposite decisions are made than what we actually need right now. And then everybody will come up with excuses as to why we don't really need to take care of the planet, you know, and it's all in the name of the dollar. And so that is very dangerous, because that is that old paradigm that is driving our world, this idea of separation. You know, we know, and even science is teaching us, and I'm a scientist, that's where I come from. Science is teaching us that there is no disconnect. Right? The deeper we go in physics and quantum levels, you know, on the deepest level possible, we see that there's really no separation between us.
We're all energy, and it's just vibrating at different frequencies, and it's just, we can see it because it's solid to the level that we can visualize it, but other than that, we're just vibrating particles.
Yeah, and we are both of those things, right? So we are energy, and we are the intelligence of the universe, and we are these personal selves. We have these incredibly beautiful bodies in order to be alive and live this into the world, right? We are each so powerfully unique. You know, when we talk about owning your own light, and like, what does that really mean, right?
Right.
each of us is so completely unique and powerful and full of incredible skills and gifts and talents and experiences and heartbreaks and magical things that have shaped us in so many ways. No two humans have the same fingerprint. No two species, every single species, like the zebra stripes on every single zebra are different. Every single species on this planet is completely unique by design. That's huge to think about that. When we think about like, well, what do I have to offer the world? It's like, well, what you have is is yours and yours alone, and there's nobody in the entire world that can do what you do the way you do it. And if we don't step into ourselves deeply and really honor our gifts and all the things that we have inside of us, we're doing the world an injustice, because nobody can do what we do.
That's so
We
true.
have to own our light in order to take part.
Yeah, and people like, oh, there's so many people doing this, that, and the other thing. Like, there's so many healers, or there's so many scientists. But you know what? Each one has their own unique gift and their own unique niche that attracts a certain amount of people that'll come to them and really understand it through that person, because only they and you can connect on this level. And that's what your gift is, to connect with those people. And yeah, that's what you're saying. I understand that totally.
Yeah.
So, when you think of the collective consciousness now at this point in 2019, where do you think we're at?
Yeah, I feel like wonderful things are happening.
Okay, good. I think so
I
too.
feel like it's very exciting. It goes back to that, what we were just talking about a minute ago, where it's like, the pressure's on. And so many people who may have been complacent at one point in their lives are feeling excited, are feeling invited, and inspired to somehow take part in the world in a new way. And leadership does not always look like leading large movements or organizations. What it really means fundamentally, when we come down to it, is how do we lead our own lives? How do I show up for myself and honor what I know I need to be doing in my life? How do I show up for my partner, for my children, for my family, for my social groups? Like, how do I show up in every way possible, in a way that's aligned with what I know is true, that honors the sense of compassion, that honors the world? I recently had an interview in a summit around, what does it mean to, like, manifest the life that we want to live, our life, manifestation. And, for me, like, when we talk about like how we live our lives, we can't separate that from the needs of the world. So we might have a vision of what we want to create in our lives and how we want to live our lives. And at the same time, we have to think about, now, how does that affect the world around me? And this is part of leadership, right? A good leader is not just thinking about ourselves, it's thinking about ourselves in relationship to the world around us. So each choice that I make, or each thing that I feel like I want to create or have in my life, how will that affect the world? How will that positively affect the world, right? And as long as my choices are not creating a ripple effect that creates problems for other people or the planet or other animals or anything, then I know that I'm in alignment and making a good choice. And so that's a consideration that we're invited to, in each choice we make in our lives, to think about not only ourselves, but holding ourselves and holding the dream of the world and what the world needs right now. So these are the ways that I feel like consciousness is opening up. These are the considerations that are happening. We're even seeing it in business right now, where businesses are considering the people, the planet, as well as the profit. And so it's not just profit driven. Great, it's great, let's make money, let's have abundance in our lives, not at the cost of, though, right? How can we be in abundance and also at the same time consider how we affect the world and make choices that feel aligned, even create positive ripple effects into the world? How can we create abundance and also create, generativity and wonderful things and new ways of being that can help create sustainability in our world? Let's get creative, because that's what the world's asking for. And I think that is where our consciousness is leading for those of us that are awakening into this.
Well, there's so much our planet needs. And I just thought of a quote that someone said to me in one of my talks was, if it's not good for everyone, it's not good for anyone. And you just said that. And I'm like, wow, that was such a great sentence, because that's exactly what you just said. And because it's true. We think it's all about me. We used to be the no man is an island, every man is an island kind of thing. That's such an old thought. It's just not even worthwhile anymore, because if you're alone, what have you got? I mean, there's nothing there. You're lonely, you're sad, you don't feel part of. Nobody wants to feel separate. They really don't. I think that separation thing is a very old thinking, and we want to be part of community. Like, community is coming out more and more and more now. And when you're part of a community, I mean, everyone's happier. I mean, that was the way the living was in the ancient days. They lived in tribes, and they lived in communal areas, and they shared food, and, all that is, I think these, even like the homes that are coming out for the elderly now, I mean, literally, they do at least have a chance to be together with each other. They're not stuck in a place isolated. And a lot of them really love that, because they can be with new friends. I mean, because a lot of their friends aren't even available. They're not here. And so if you're alone living in your house, that's pretty sad, because I've heard of one of my friends whose mom is alone and living in her house, and she's just really lonely, and all her friends have left, and she doesn't want to go into anything else. And so, it's like, community is so important, and it's so important to know that whatever we do to our other things and other people, we're doing it to ourselves.
You were so right, Janet. And like, community has been a big center point of all the work I've done. Like, when I was talking earlier about events that I've done for the last 20 years, everything that drives me, whether it's been events or speaking or workshops or the Institute or anything, the heart of it all is about helping us remember who we are and reconnecting with ourselves, each other, and our world, so that we can participate in moving our world forward. And the center point of all of that is community. So I've been a community activist, a community creator, for a very long time. And also, something you just said, people don't really want to be alone. And when they operate from the space of separation, look at what happens. We have so much depression, rates are out of control, even in young kids right now, right? There's so much happening right now that where people are literally just suffering alone, and they don't feel connected, no matter how much money they have, because that isn't where it's at. Right?
So true. Sad events are happening constantly around me. And I think this, the technology is forcing a separation. It's almost creates a separation, because people could sit at a table and be texting each other. I mean, that's like, it's like a joke, but actually, I think it actually happens. It's like, seriously, I don't do that. But
the other day I was out somewhere, and I was sitting there without my phone, and I was looking around, and I think there were a bunch of people around me, and everybody was on their phones. And I was like, God, when I was younger, I would have a book with me, and I still do. I carry a journal or a book, and I have my phone too sometimes. But I remember before, like, I would look around, and people would just be communicating or
talking.
Book, or somebody would have a book. When's the last time I looked around and saw somebody reading a book?
You'll see me if we bump into each other. I always have a book.
It's not common, and maybe in like an older generation now, but not these younger, like 20s and 30s. Like, everybody's on their devices, even in their teens. Like, I have a 5-year-old, and my husband and I are like, he's in a Waldorf school, and he's not on screens. Like,
good.
We're very careful about how we balance that, because it's an addiction. Screens by design, they're in there psychologically figuring out, how do we get people to stay on their phones longer? They're literally putting billions of dollars into the research to get us hooked. It's all about hooking, because it's all about money, at the cost of our psyches, at the cost of our health, pharmaceutical companies,
cost of creativity,
at the cost of everything that makes us human. And
we
have to be, this is the conversation that we absolutely need to be having. I'm so grateful that we're having it right now.
Yeah, because I know I was reading articles how don't give kids under 5 or 7 devices, because it totally stops their creativity. Like, they can't think for themselves. They don't know how to just have imagination. It literally stops imagination, which was like, whoa, who would have ever thought of that?
And then how many times do you go out to a restaurant and see a little baby sitting in a high chair with a screen in front of them with some cartoon going?
See, I'm not going to, I hope, I have a new grandchild. I just became a grandmom, and my grandchild is 8 weeks old, and I'm just praying that my son and his wife don't do that. I really hope not.
It's a conversation, and anybody listening, if that is your situation, just please, invitation to rethink this, because I know that it's convenient, because you have a conversation with the adult and the child seems occupied.
It's a babysitter.
Think about the cost. Think about the cost. Sometimes we need to be a little less convenienced to do what is the right thing to nurture ourselves and our children and our world. And this really is an important conversation, because we live in a world that's trying to make everything so convenient, right? Everything's fast, everything is now, fast, like immediate gratification. So we're impatient. We have no attention span. Kids have ADD all over the place, and they're starting on pharmaceutical drugs at 5 years old now, right? Because now they have a patient for life, right? They have a customer for life. Think about that. Why is there so much ADD, right? How are we so distracted? We're, like I said before, we're escape, 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 escape. What about being in the wild? What about being in the natural world?
Yeah.
Really being.
Yeah. Just go sit out in the grass and look at the clouds. I mean, we don't stop.
We need this. This is what our souls need right now. We get our greatest, most creative information, and our greatest ideas when we slow down, when we go for that walk, when we're not hustling and moving 10,000 million miles per minute, because we all seem to be doing that. The world is moving so fast that we are forgetting why we're here. We're forgetting who we are. We're forgetting what's really important.
I so agree with that, because I can even feel myself getting involved in things, and I'm like, there's not even enough time in the day to get all this done right now. And we're not, we're the human beings, we're not the human doings. And that's been said for a while now, but honestly, you got to keep repeating it, because people forget to be. I can, I don't turn any devices on during my day. It's like, there's no TVs, none of that. Well, I might listen to my phone or a cast while I'm walking around doing housework or something, but whatever. But I'm doing this work, I'm doing this. But yeah, it's
okay. It's okay to watch a show. It's okay to
oh,
watch
every now and then, yeah, but just not constant.
Something once in a while, right? But we want to do whatever we do, whatever choices we make, we want to make them consciously.
Yes.
We don't want to just like, that's our go-to. This becomes a habit, or we're picking up our phone 10 times in an hour. Why? Like, we could check it and then come back later and check it. And sometimes I find myself slipping into the habit, because
oh yeah, we can all do it.
check yourselves. Yes. Right. So it's making the choices consciously.
Yeah.
That's a big part of what we do also at Psychospiritual Institute. We do a lot of work around self-awareness, as I was sharing earlier, and really understanding who we are and the blocks that come up, and where are those limiting beliefs and those identities that we connect with so strongly that we think that's who we are. And so we have this beautiful work around identifying the parts of ourselves that have these beliefs that hold us back, and then disidentifying and reconnecting with a deeper space within us, so that we can create a distance between who we are and the contents of our consciousness. And we can really see how we're stepping into ourselves, what it is that we believe about ourselves, and we can make conscious choices. And then we can activate our will. And the will is what I was going to get to, is that the huge part of what we do in the Institute is will work around the will. Every day we're making choices constantly throughout the day. And sometimes we are doing it mindlessly and habitually. And wow, I really want this, and I'm aware that I want this. So why do I keep making this choice? I really want peace in my relationship, but I keep acting like this. Like, there's all kinds of things playing inside of us. And so something that's very important is to look at our will, because awareness isn't enough. So we do this work around centering into how we make choices and where our choices are coming from. Are they coming from a part of us that believes we can't do it, or they're not going to listen, or they're not going to love me, or something like that? Or we make the choice from that deepest centered point, our beautiful wholeness, this wildly alive part of us, that knows what we want, and we can choose from that space. Again, it's really about alignment. Awareness will creating alignment in our lives, so that we can live fully, as who we are meant to be. So will becomes a big part of that, how we make choices, how we choose things consciously in our lives.
Yeah. And is that another word for mindfulness? Is that what you'd call mindfulness, or is that different?
No, that's different. Being mindful is being aware, being really aware of what's happening with the emotions that are flowing through us. The will is how we take action on what we know. Right? So sometimes we say awareness is like the in-breath, taking in what we notice, what we see, what we're aware of, and then the out-breath is the will. It's like, how do we move what we're aware of into the world in a way that's aligned? So it's making inspired choices, and decisions that really honor who we are. which is not always easy. The will is something that's, I think, highly neglected in personal development work.
I have not really heard it talked about. I talk about free will, that we have free will. Okay. So we can make our choices, what you're talking about, but now you're talking about conscious will.
Yeah. How
I
do we
like
do
that.
it?
I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. How do we make those choices? And what happens when when we find ourselves choosing something, but it's not really what we want? What's happening in that space right there? And a lot of it has to do with what we call subpersonalities. And these
Mm,
are a minute ago I was talking about, like, sometimes in our lives we identify with a part of ourselves. So let's say somebody believes that they're not creative,
mm-hmm.
and so they're invited to do something creative and they're like, oh, no, no, that's not who I am. Like, I'm a linear thinker, but there's not a creative
Right.
in my
Right.
body. We've all met someone like that before in our lives. So maybe when that person was like 5 years old, they drew a picture and somebody came up and they were really proud of it and they were looking at it and they said, oh, no, that's not how you draw a house. No,
Oh,
let me show you. And they're like, oh, so now something is planted inside of them that says, well, maybe I don't know how to do that. And then let's say a couple years later, they're sitting next to somebody in class and the teacher comes up and praises the person next to them. Oh my God, that's so beautiful. Hey, everyone, look at Joe's picture. This is gorgeous. And they're going, well, maybe mine's not good enough. And then the next time they're invited to draw or do something creative, they just play with blocks instead.
mm-hmm.
And then they just stop trying to do something creative. So a part of them has been created, that a subpersonality, like a person, a part of them, that believes that they're not creative.
Yep.
When ultimately who we are is the intelligence of the universe. Like, we are tapped into creativity. We all have access to some form of creativity. And it may not look like music or drawing, but there's all kinds of ways to express creativity in our lives and in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But if we believe that we're not creative, like if we identify so strongly with that part of us that we think that's who we are versus a part of us that had an experience or had a wound, right? If we think that's who we are, we're going to limit ourselves. We're never going to take time to develop our creativity because we believe we're not creative. But if we create a distance between that part of us and connect more deeply with everything that's possible and potential within us, then we can say, wow, I know this part of me is very strong, and I've believed for a long time that I'm not creative. But when I center back in, I know that I have access to creativity. What's a choice that I can make right now that would be something creative in my life? And so now the next time you're invited to do that creative thing, your immediate choice, what your will would have been hijacked. Your will would have gone right into that identity that said, no way. And you'd be like, oh, no, 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 I'm not going to do that. But now you have this awareness. So now that when you're asked to do something that has some form of creativity involved, you take a breath and you say, this part of me feels very strong, like it's wanting me to say no. And this is the habit that I've always done, but there's another part of me, a deeper part of me, that's excited by the idea of trying something creative.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that's really who I am. So I'm going to utilize my will in a conscious way and say, yes, I'm going to try this because that feels more resonant. That feels more aligned. And I know that if I'm able to sort of express my creativity and even consciously work on developing my creativity, it's going to make me stronger in every area of my life. So the deeper choice that's aligned with you is saying yes, even though part of you wants to say no and you normally would have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. I have not thought of that way. I love that.
That's the kind of work that we do.
Yeah, it's a whole new way of looking at it. Yeah, I like that, distancing yourself from the immediate reaction and just stopping. It's like going into a moment, no reaction. Don't react, just wait a moment, think about, what do I really want? I don't know. I don't want that necessarily like I used to. Yeah, it's
If
just not
I make the decision and it doesn't really feel good somehow,
right, right.
breath and center, because we have this emotional guiding system within us, and whenever something comes up that doesn't really feel good in some way, it's an invitation for us to tune in. There's our mindfulness, or become deeply self-aware. That means like our deeper sense of self, and really look at, if this doesn't feel good, what's a different, maybe even an opposite decision that I could make, and what would that look like?
Yeah. That's really, really interesting. So, thank you for that. I think
Yeah.
that's a great awareness for people to know about. I think that's going to help people. You could shift yourself really if you keep that consciousness in your mind, like every time something comes up like that. Because if you're like, say you're just looking for something new to do, you're opening yourself up. Like I remember hearing you talk about curiosity. if you're not curious, I mean, you've shut down so many things in your life. And I love curiosity. I'm always curious. I mean, to me, there's never, I mean, you can't learn, you'll never learn everything. And there's so much to learn. And, you know, I just find it so exciting where a lot of people are like, oh, well, you know, I'm not that excited. And I don't really, you know, I don't like what you do and blah, 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 whatever. And it's like, well, you're not open to it because you're not allowing it. You're just shutting it down because of old limiting beliefs that you have been taught from way back when. And we keep growing and expanding. That's what this world is about. As you're saying, we're changing and we're growing. And when you open to that, you are allowing expansion and you're allowing the shifting that we're talking about, bringing in this new thinking and this new world and taking care of our world, and, you know, just stepping back into being responsible again for all of the things we're doing in consciousness, and just being, like you say, in your will. I like that a lot. That's really,
Definitely. And I
thinking.
love what you're saying about curiosity. You know, it kind of goes back to that very first question you asked me, like what got me started. And it really was like the quality of curiosity that brought me to question, like, well, what else don't I know? Or what else that I absolutely assume is true? That I think everybody, anyone who's listening right now, like think about what you know now. Like 10 years ago, you thought something, and today you have more awareness about it. And you're like, wow, I really believed that 10 years ago, you know, but now I know that it's actually this. Well, how many things do you absolutely know are true that perhaps 10 years from now you're going to discover are really not what you think are true? So always staying in that space of curiosity and inquiry, and not assuming, like those unexamined assumptions of what we think are real and true about ourselves and the world. You know, we need to be in the inquiry and in the curiosity of it right now more than ever in our world.
Oh, I think that's a great word. You know, you don't hear people even use it that often anymore, because I don't know why. Because we're so technical. I mean, our world is technical. Curiosity is kind of imagination and free flowing and creative, where everything is so high tech and techy, and it's all in a box. It's like boxed. It's getting boxed up in a way. You know, even though we expand with the technology, but you're still, like you say, you're limited. You're getting separated. It's just another limit in my thinking. It's like a limiting way of living.
And not to mention all the manipulative conditioning of society. You know, it's like, you know, we're born into this world unstoried, right? As infants, we come in without a story. And then very quickly, you know, through the religion, here's the story, or through, you know, girls do this and boys do this, and this is what society is about, and this is what you're supposed to do, and by this time you're
Mhm.
supposed to be married, and all these shoulds and conditions are placed upon us, you know, and all these stories and meanings, and then that thing happens with the picture at 5 years old, and you created a story and a meaning, and all of a sudden we have all these stories, you know, and then we've got now this like multi-billion-dollar, you know, industry, you know, just this, all this work around understanding the human psyche and how to manipulate it through advertising, right? Like by the time a child goes into first grade, they've seen like 100,000 advertisements in all different forms. Can you imagine? So we are constantly bombarded with what to think and how to feel and who to vote for. Be careful, guys, because literally they are out there on Facebook creating ads that are looking at your profile. They have like thousands of data points on each person, and sculpting ads to manipulate the people who are somewhat in the center to literally give you like personal ads that will sway you in one direction or another. So there's a lot of manipulation of our psyche going on in this world right now. So we have to take a check on our mental environment, because oftentimes we don't do that. So we think we know what's true. We have an opinion, but where does that opinion actually come from? Who's shaping that opinion?
Mm.
We have to be in the curiosity. We have to be in the inquiry. We can't assume everything is true, and certainly not everything we see on Facebook or
Oh, that's for sure. That is so true. So what do you see as your role now in the present reality? Like right now, what are you looking at? And can you just talk a little louder? It's a little bit, your
yeah,
voice is going a little bit lower.
definitely. Yeah, let me know anytime you need more volume. I can
Yeah,
project. Yeah.
yeah,
What is my role now?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I absolutely, you know, sometimes I call myself a paradigm hacker.
Mm, yeah.
right? Because it is this invitation. I love to be in this conversation. My role in this planet, you know, my vision, my deepest vision of what I'm here for, what I'm meant for, is, like I said earlier, I mentioned it, is to help us remember who we are. Because from that place of remembering our deepest self, how we are fundamentally connected to everything, that changes how we live. That changes our decisions. That changes how we show up in the world. And so everything that I do, no matter what the delivery mechanism is, right? So the forms may change throughout my life, from events to speaking to workshops to whatever. I was an actor, for years, also had a TV show, like all the things I've ever done, but part of it is discovering who it is that we are and how we reconnect with the world. And that's my role. And so very much I've stepped into myself consciously as a leader. I definitely have stepped into a larger leadership role on this planet. And in the most humble way, I am in service. With all the gifts that I have inside of me, with the most humble heart, I am here to be in service on the highest level to help move our world forward with a new dream, a new vision of what we can create together as community.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So what keeps your energy moving forward and keeps you positive doing this?
Yeah, I mean, just knowing that I just resonate and I feel so good. My energy is so high all the time because I'm living in this beautiful space.
Mm-hmm.
Why, like, that inner glow is just like, and I feel like it's contagious. And
Mm-hmm.
I get to be that inspiration, and I get to help create more leaders in the world. And it's such a blessing because at Psycho Spiritual Institute we attract change makers and compassionate troublemakers, people who really want to step up in their own lives and in our world on small and large levels. And so I get to work with incredible people, and it's helping me continue to grow and deepen, and I'm learning with them, even as I'm guiding them, but I'm also learning with them. And it's tremendously beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like just absolutely in love with what I do. I feel like, you talked about self-love earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the heart of everything, when I started off as an activist many, many, many years ago, over 20 years ago, I saw so many angry, emotionally charged people. They didn't know what to do with all these emotions as they were awakening to some what they felt like, they didn't know how to hold it all. And so there was a lot of big emotions and angry finger pointing and stuff going on. And I got very quickly that the way for us to create change in the world is to invite all of us and ourselves to fall in love with who we are,
Mm-hmm.
fall in love with ourselves. When we're in love with ourselves, then we get to expand that love. It overflows from inside of us, and it creates more profound love with our partners, with people, with the world. If we fall in love with the earth and the beauty of this planet, we're inspired to take action. It doesn't feel like a duty or something hard. It feels like an inspiration that we can't wait to be part of in some way. And
Mm-hmm.
so falling in love with who we are and with life is the center point of it all. And that's what inspires me and drives me and keeps my energy flowing, just being in love with the beauty of the world and what's possible, no matter what's to come. I wouldn't want to live in any other way but in love.
I love that because my first website was Fall in Love with Life Again. And it wasn't about falling in love with yourself, but it was also part of that. But that was what I said. But yeah, just going outside and just enjoying, like now the leaves are starting to change. I love the autumn. I love the fall. And I love the change of seasons because I'm in New England. And so for me, it's just fabulous. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, even though I don't love the winters all the time. But, I love that first snow or the first 2 or 3, maybe by then I'm done, but I'm still here. I haven't left, but I love all that. And, to be in the wonder, it's like we have to stay in our child heart, to be in the wonder of all of it. That's still in the imagination. Put your phone down and take a look around. When you're driving, when these trees are changing color, it's just spectacular. There's nothing more beautiful than Mother Nature. I mean, nobody can compare to nature. I mean, no matter what you set up and you make up in your mind, nothing is more beautiful than Mother Nature. I mean, I've
It's,
traveled a lot. Yeah, I
and
love that. I love that so much.
and
Yeah.
that's what reminds us, right? When I say, remember who we are,
Mm-hmm.
being in that space of being that we were talking about earlier in a very fast-paced world, it's like even just taking a moment in a busy
Mm-hmm.
to consciously stop just for 1 minute. 1 minute is not going to affect your day, not in any way. Imagine just taking 1 minute to close your eyes and feel the sun on your face.
Mm-hmm.
Breathe. Just
Exactly. Yeah. A
and then
lot of us don't breathe. We don't even breathe. Many of us have talked about that on this. I've stepped out my front door when I'm so busy up here. I'll go downstairs and step out my front door just to feel the sun and breathe, because it's like, oh my goodness, I've got to get outside because it's so, I just love it. And it's so pretty. And it's like, there's nothing like it. It's because we're part of it. We're part of the earth, and we're all one. And when you connect like that, it just rejuvenates you. It's just a rejuvenation.
100%, and
Yeah.
that's, I used to be a professor at Florida International University, and I taught ecology and deep ecology,
Ah.
in the classroom and also in the field. So I used to take students out I live in Florida, so we would go out to the Everglades and
Oh
do
yeah.
beautiful deep ecology work. Deep ecology is like that philosophy
Oh
of
yeah.
connection. And so it was like taking time to close our eyes, to breathe, to listen, to feel. And there is no way when you do that you will absolutely almost immediately reconnect with your deeper sense of self
Mhm.
and understand, like, this earth is part of my larger body, and even this earth is centered in an entire cosmos that is a great mystery, that we just do not even know all the mystery that is here, that is inside of us, that is around us, that is what is like this life is such a mystery. It's so beautiful to live in the unknown, and just to take a moment and connect, breathe into that mystery and the beauty of you. And it really puts perspective on the tiny things that become big things in our lives, and we're able to hold things in a totally different way.
Mhm.
Transform your life, and it will transform the way you live your life.
Yeah, and people might be saying, "Oh, that's just silly, just doing that's not going to change you." But it really does. If you really step out
It's
and
one
do that for yourself, it'll totally change your day. You'll be like, "Wow, I feel so much better now." It's like it's a gift to step outside. It's like that's our gift, to be in this nature, and that's why we're here, to just be part of. We don't have to dominate it. We just want to be part of.
Yeah, and then to remember that it's not like the pendulum swings. It's not like take a moment, feel relaxed, then go back to craziness. It's like, then how do you hold
Mhm.
that feeling even when you're moving quickly? Because you can move fast with grace.
Yes, you can.
Get 20 things done and take a breath, and it doesn't have to be like frenzied. It can actually be
Right.
like doing this, I'm getting this done, I'm making this phone call, and you can actually do that in a space of peace. So here's the invitation. How do you hold the peace within you even when you're moving quickly? It's not an either or, it's a both and if we can live our lives in that, then we're living our lives in grace. We will get much more accomplished, we'll be much more productive, and we'll be healthier, happier, and more connected and more aligned,
Mm.
right? If we can do that. Now, it's not that easy to, okay, go do it, right? So there's the process, and there's the work of becoming more aware and learning these tools and really understanding how it is that we're able to live in this space of grace, an awakened space of awareness, and make those conscious choices so that the life we live is so powerful and so profound. And the day that we transition into the mystery of the unknown, we're able to say, I have fully lived, and
Mhm.
exciting. And now I can be curious about what comes next.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. That's so true. So, do you have any special message for our audience for 2019?
A special message. Goodness. I mean, I feel like the message has been in everything we've
Yeah,
said.
you've been giving a lot. So I was like, well, that's a hard one, probably because she's given so many messages. So what you just said is to stay in the space, and then you have the curiosity. I love that.
Just remember who you are is so much larger than your emotions and your body and your thoughts that you think. And, it's like the blue sky and the clouds floating through. And so whenever something intense is happening in your life, know that you can hold it from a deeper space of peace, even if you're holding grief or sadness or pain or whatever it is that's happening for you in that moment. Don't turn away. Be with it, turn toward it, and take a breath, and know that who you are is bigger than it, and you're experiencing it. So you can hold it with love and be present to it, and look for the information and the gold and the lessons that it has to teach you, because it's through being present with what is, through accepting with what is at every moment in our lives, that we gain the deepest wisdom about who we are, right? So that's the message I want to convey, I think, right now, is just Stop running away from yourself and be very deeply present with everything that is. Embrace, love it, embody it, honor it, and through that, own your beautiful divine light and live it into the world.
Yeah, thank you for that. So I know you have a gift for the group, for our listeners, and I would love you to just tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this, and I hope everybody, take a moment to get this gift because you're going to love it. It's called the Ideal Model Exercise, and it's an exercise that we use in the spiritual psychology work of psychosynthesis through the Spiritual Institute. And this exercise, it's an audio exercise. It's around 30 minutes, and what it's going to do is it's going to invite you to take a look at, in a very artistic and embodied way. So you're actually also connecting with creativity, how you show up in the world. The ways what we sometimes call false models, showing up in the world in ways that are expected of me, or in bigger ways than I really am, or how do I under evaluate myself? And there's all this whole process where we step through and look at all these different ways that we are showing up in the world that are not fully aligned with who we are. And then we go through a process of releasing that and stepping into the ideal model of who we know we are and how we want to live in the world. And so we are then invited to create and envision and embody the ideal vision of ourselves. And it's a really powerfully beautiful exercise that has had incredible breakthroughs for so many people that I've worked with. So I'm inviting everybody into that. And then after that, you'll also receive an invitation to connect with me, and we can actually integrate the exercise and have a beautiful deep inquiry session together. So you're going to get kind of a double invitation.
That sounds wonderful. Wow. I think it sounds really powerful. So I hope that our listeners will just go in there and get that gift, because I know it's going to give you some value, and everything we talked about today, it'll put it into a practical way of embodying what we talked about today. It's a beautiful gift. And I want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And, we love to get your feedback. So please give us some feedback, email us. I answered them all personally for season 1. I did, so I'll do my best to do it again. And if you can connect, with Val, she'll have her link at the bottom of this show. And I want to thank you, Val, for being the amazing earth ecologist transformer that you are, of moving us into this huge, blazing, divine planet of light that we're moving into. I know we're moving into so much more, and you are one of the path showers of that. And so grateful to you for all the work you've done, and for helping so many people. The leadership that you're bringing into the world is huge and so needed. And that is so powerful, and helping all these people unlock their passions, ignite their authenticities, and finally create the lives they love. So thank you again, Val. And I'm Janet Miller, and I'll see you on the next episode.